My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. I'm going to break down the entire UFC San Antonio fight card, giving you my picks, my predictions, and my bets. But before we talk about UFC San Antonio, let's talk about what a massive success UFC 286 was. We have given you 37 units of net profit in 2023, over 8 events. Last night alone, we gave you 21.5 units of net profit. I was up, Jacob was up, Safety Parlay missed, but all of these numbers include every bet we do, both the winning and the losing bets. Prize Picks hit, Underdog Fantasy hit. Jacob had that massive bet on Leon Edwards. My bets are there in the top right. The Gunnar Nelson, Brian Barberena. I had Brian over 14.5 significant strikes. That missed. Dude has never not landed more than 14 significant strikes in a fight until last night. So that bet missed, but I hit Jake Hadley inside the distance. Roman Dolidze, decision no action, was refunded. Yanal Ashmaz, the biggest winning underdog on the card, we hit that bet. And Chris Duncan, moneyline, I hit that bet. Jacob went absolutely nuts last night. WeWantPicks.com, become a premium member. Don't be a cheap bastard. UFC San Antonio, picks, bets, breakdowns, all that is available to you right now, this very second. We also have the line movement tracker. This is a tool that helps you spot trends in betting lines. You can hop on, you can hop off, you can follow a trend, you can abandon a trend. Whatever you want to do with this information is up to you, but it's very valuable, important information when you're finding your spots. You're going to get the opening odds, the current odds, what the probability is at the current odds, and then the line movement itself. If we look at Chidi Njokuani for this card, UFC San Antonio, he opened at a plus 145 underdog and is now sitting on Sunday morning as a minus 160 favorite. Those are the trends that you want to see and you want to spot. That means Vegas said this, but the sharps and the money said something else, and that's probably something you should follow to cash your bets. We also have a whole other suite of metrics, analytics, a DraftKings optimizer, fantasy tools. There is so much content and information and tools available to you through premium membership that there's no reason we all shouldn't be making money. Well, we are. Most of our premium members are. Tag along, sign up now. WeWantPicks.com. It is $10 a month. Do not be a cheap bastard missing out on all this incredible content and these tools to help you make money. And speaking of giving you money, I'll give you money. I will give you 50 bucks. All you need to do is go to WeWantPicks.com/bets. Use our link to sign up with any one of our betting partners, and I will send you $50 as a thank you. It's affiliate marketing. They're going to pay me. You're going to sign up. They're going to say, wow, thanks, Ange. Here's money. I'm going to take a piece of that money and I'm going to give it to you because we are a community. We are in this together. WeWantPicks.com/bets. Use my link. Make an account, make a deposit. I will send you 50 bucks as a thank you. That's the promos. Let's break down this card. And opening up UFC San Antonio, we have Tamires Vidal taking on Hailey Cowan. Hailey Cowan, if you remember, was supposed to fight a few weeks ago. Had an ovarian cyst burst, and now she's here, right? They rebooked her. She's from Texas. She lives in Texas, so a little bit of a good news came out of all that for her. But Tamires Vidal is a former soccer player. She's got strong grappling, a BJJ brown belt, and she immediately starts working and looking for takedowns when those fights start, typically just throwing big overhands and then pressures you to the cage where she looks for control and takedowns. Once it gets to the ground, she is chasing submissions. She's dangerous on top. She's also pretty dangerous off her back, and she's always looking for something. Her striking is almost non-existent other than just wild swinging to get this fight to the ground, but she is coming off that knockout win over Ramona Pascal in her last fight. Hailey Cowan is a long, powerful striker who's going to wrestle as well. She's light on her feet. She has a traditional kickboxing style that she uses to close distance and work against the cage. Her offensive takedowns are just okay, but her takedown defense has been pretty impressive. She scrambles well with whizzers and inside trips to really keep it on her feet. She's athletic, powerful, fast, and she's pretty composed for somebody with only 9 fights. I mentioned Hailey Cowan was supposed to fight a few weeks ago. Had a ruptured cyst, was pulled off the card, and now she's here. I had her winning that fight. I thought she was going to win that fight. I thought the matchup made a little bit of sense for her, but I don't think she's going to win this fight. Tamires Valdez is too strong, too powerful, hits too hard, too good of grappler. Hailey's athletic. She has demonstrated solid takedown defense in the past, but I think this is going to be different. I think Tamires just coming forward, bombing away, and the relentless takedown attempts are going to be the difference here. So I have Tamires winning. But rule number 1, we don't bet on women's MMA. Although that Joanne Calderwood bet cashed, but I placed that before that rule was enforced. Then we got Victor Altamirano taking on Vinicius Salvador. And Vinicius Salvador is a long striker. He has an insane volume and solid accuracy in what he thinks is solid defense. And I say that because if you watch his Contender Series fight, he was just standing against the cage, bobbing and weaving, thinking he was Roy Jones Jr. And it worked for him in that fight. But if you look at his stats, the dude is hit with 7 significant strikes per minute, which is well above the 3 to 4 average that you see. With that being said, though, he is durable. He has some very real power in both of his hands and his feet. His takedown defense is not great, but he uses his length on bottom to throw things up, scramble, and work to his feet. Victor Altamirano is a fast and powerful guy on his feet, but he's also patient and calculated. He has an impressive 7 to 5 striking differential, which just speaks to that pressure. His takedown defense isn't great, but he has sweeps from bottom, and he has good enough get-up game that he's just not going to be ridden out. He is coming off the stoppage win over Daniel Da Silva, but almost everybody does that to Daniel Da Silva. This is a razor-thin fight. This could potentially be fight of the night as well. Both of these guys land at incredible numbers, right? The volume is nuts. Both of them set really nice paces. The difference here is that Victor is a dog. He's got that dog in him. He'll come forward. He'll bite down. He will make things happen. Salvador, while dangerous, has a little too much fun. He likes to showcase. I mentioned that stupid Roy Jones Jr. nonsense. And I just see Victor grinding out a high-paced win that probably goes to a decision. I see Victor working in the wrestling to avoid that big power. The odds right now are sitting as a pick'em. I get it, right? I get why it's a pick'em, but I'm going with Victor here. I'm probably going to end up placing a money line bet. I haven't pulled the trigger on that just yet, but I do think I'm going to end up doing that. Then we have Manuel Torres taking on Trey Ogden. And Manuel Torres is a well-rounded guy who has dangerous striking, dangerous grappling. His striking is not super technical, but he uses his knees from the clinch really well, and he loves throwing to the head, and he loves just blasting your legs. If you look at his physique, he is long, he's skinny, and he does a really great job working with that. His submissions are those long limb-style submissions where it's triangles, power guillotines, anything that uses leverage. And the same logic with his clinch work. He's so long, he can keep his hips really far away in that plumb and then throw those knees with a quarter mile of distance and power to build up. He's coming off that first-round knockout over Frank Camacho last year. And he's taking on Trey Ogden, who's an athletic grappler with solid takedowns and decent power in his hands. He's absolutely a grappler, but if you run through his tape, you're going to see that even in his submission wins, he's dropping people. He's going to drop them with strikes and then just snatch up a neck. His takedowns are really well timed, and he does an excellent job of lowering his level and shooting blast doubles at his opponents when they come in. He's coming off that win over Daniel Zellhuber, where he was only 1 for 9 in takedown attempts, but was tough on his feet, and he won those striking exchanges. And I'm going to go with Torres here because I think the length is going to be an issue for Ogden. And if I didn't watch him get stuffed 8 times in his last fight, I'd actually be a little more confident in Trey's abilities here. But if he's stuck in a striking match because he can't get his wrestling going like he couldn't in his last fight, things are just not going to go his way. So Torres is the pick. But Trey has a very clear path to victory here if he gets the wrestling going. So no bets for me on this fight. Then we have CJ Vergara. I love this guy. We got CJ Vergara taking on Daniel Da Silva. CJ Vergara is a powerful striker with solid forward pressure. He has clean boxing and solid knees. He likes to fight inside the pocket where he can use his clinch work and showcase that power. He is coming off that loss to Tatsuro Taira where he showed his power, but ultimately was outclassed on the ground. He had a handful of explosions, but he just eventually was submitted. Daniel Da Silva, also known as Daniel Lacerda, it's like an interchangeable last name situation going on here. He's just trying to find his footing in the UFC. Style-wise, he's a solid striker. He's got good kicks, good forward pressure. If he gets it to the ground, he has really good control and pressure from top, but his takedowns are not great, so he's not really getting to the ground that often, or at least not in as many attempts. He's another feast or famine fighter. All 11 wins and 4 losses are by stoppage. He's very dangerous, but he is willing to put himself in harm's way to chase that stoppage. He's coming off the first round loss to Victor Altamirano. Daniel is always interesting to break down because you see his talent, You can tell how good he is, and we know how dangerous he is from his record, but he is all hammer and no nail. Any bit of adversity, and he just wilts to that pressure. So like most De Silva fights, he's going to be stupid dangerous early, but I do think he loses. I think CJ's high pressure style is perfect to beat De Silva. I see CJ coming forward, staying in his face, and ultimately getting the win. If history tells us anything, it's that this is not going to go the distance. So that's a safe bet. This fight doesn't go the distance. Whatever those odds are, just parlay it, because there's no way this is going to see the judge's scorecard. Then we got Trevin Giles taking on Preston Parsons. Trevin Giles is a very athletic grappler. He's got a solid jab, pretty light on his feet, and he does a nice job of working in and out of range. He's going to throw a combination, then step back out of range and reset. Regardless of what the stats say, his wrestling offense is not very good, but he does have solid takedown defense at 73%. He sets a nice pace, and he pumps his jab well. He's coming off that first win at 170 pounds over Luis Kosei, where he had 2 takedowns and a couple minutes of control time. Preston Parsons is a very slick grappler who, up until his last fight, had a 100% submission finish rate in all of his wins. He's a BJJ black belt who moves forward aggressively, throwing big shots to set up takedowns. He's coming off his first UFC win over Evan Elder, where he had 4 takedowns and almost 8 minutes of control time. I like Preston Parsons in this spot. Right now, he is a slight underdog, but I do think that line is going to bounce back and forth, right? I think it's just going to, whoever the underdog is going to get money. They'll become the favorite, and then that's what's going to happen to this line. A lot of people are going to comb through Trevin's Shabology, and they're going to say, wow, Trevin beat Roman Dolidze? And they're going to assume that Trevin's a killer. The reality is he did not win that fight. That was a bad decision. He's got a great jab. He's got solid grappling, but he's not the more dangerous fighter in this matchup. So seeing Preston be able to go a full 15 minutes, right? He's not a submission or bust guy. I think he's going to win this fight. I can assume he's not going to gas. I can assume he can stick with that wrestle pressure and come forward. So Preston is the pick. I have a half of a unit money line on him at -105. We'll see what happens to that line, but half a unit, and I think he's going to get it done. Then we have the always tough Steven Peterson taking on Lucas Alexander. Steven Peterson is essentially a tough guy. He's just a really tough guy who likes to strike. He showcased his submission defense in that Chase Hooper fight, in that gritty win, and that's a perfect fight for him, right? It was just perfect to show what he is. He likes to make things ugly. He likes to come forward and hopefully win fights with pressure. He's coming off the loss to Julian Erosa, where he had a really bad first round, but he just kept coming forward, and he tries to make things happen. He will never be the more technical guy in the cage, but he will almost always be the toughest. Lucas Alexander is a powerful striker that likes to showcase. He uses kicks really well to manage range, and then he explodes in the pocket. He's got okay grappling that is mostly defensive, but don't let that statement fool you. He uses his defensive wrestling to end up on top and to win grappling scrambles. He has big power and a diverse striking style, solid training partners, and when he has his cardio, he can be a real threat. He's coming off the first round loss to Joanderson Brito, where he was dominated, but we can't forget that was short notice and his UFC debut. And breaking down Steven Peterson fights is always tricky because the guy is an animal. He's going to keep coming forward no matter what you do to him, and you just can't break him. And he is going to break a lot of people with that forward pressure. It sucks the energy out of his opponents when they hit him as many times as they want, as hard as they can, and he just keeps coming forward. I mentioned this before, but he's never going to be the more technical guy in the cage. And certainly that's the case in this fight. So I got to pick Lucas here because he's the better fighter. But there's no bet because Steven Peterson is just going to keep coming forward, and it is very possible that he can grind out an ugly, ugly win. Then we got Daniel Pineda taking on Tucker Lutz. Daniel Pineda is a feast or famine fighter. There's a bunch of them on this card. He has a 100% finish rate on both sides of the coin. He's a very good wrestler with solid grappling. He comes out very fast and is dangerous for about 3 minutes. He does quickly fade, and he can be finished shortly after that. But in that initial burst, he's got powerful hands, aggressive grappling, and is a real problem. You're going to see what essentially says he's 1-1 in his last 5, but that's because 2 wins were overturned from drug issues, and his last fight was a genuine no contest with an eye poke. He's taking on Tucker Lutz, who's a solid striker. He's willing to engage, and he sets up his power shots well. He has a wrestling background, and he uses it with pressure and slam-style takedowns. His wins are dominant, but not always exciting. He comes forward, gets a big takedown, but he hangs out on top for control instead of chasing a finish. He's coming off a loss to Pat Sabatini over a year ago, where he was taken down 5 times. Daniel is incredibly dangerous, but Tucker Lutz has to be the pick here. I see him weathering the early storm, then getting his own takedowns, and most likely a finish. This is going to be a does not go the distance type situation. You can parlay this with the CJ Vergara fight as does not go the distance, and you can make some very real money here because Janier's got that kill or be killed style, and one of those 2 things is going to happen. So that's probably the best bet on the card. Just parlay does not go the distance on this fight and the CJ Vergara fight. Then we got Chidi Njokuani taking on Albert Duraev. And Chidi Njokuani is a very good striker. He's got speed, power, solid distance control. He's not a high volume guy, but he sticks and moves really well. His feet are never in the same place for very long, and people have a really hard time getting to him. If you are able to get inside the reach and work your way to his legs, you could potentially have some success with the takedowns. But so far, his takedown defense is an impressive 75%. He's coming off the TKO loss to Gregory Rodriguez, where he opened up one of the worst cuts we have ever seen in a fight, but gassed himself out and just was caught in the second round. Albert Duraev is a nasty wrestler with very good takedowns, very good top pressure, and very good ground and pound. He sets up his Greco-style takedowns with leg kicks and cage bullying. He's got a very basic game plan, but stopping him from executing it historically is a tough thing to do. Even if you stuff 8 takedowns, he will continue to pressure, continue to chain wrestle, and will not break from that cycle. He's coming off that loss to Joaquin Buckley, where even though he had 2 takedowns, he was stopped in the second round. This is one of the tougher fights on the cards to pick because I don't know which Duraev is going to show up, the flat-footed one against Buckley or the one who had success striking with Roman Kopylov. If Duraev isn't desperate with the wrestling, he could actually have more success. The obvious diving for legs is what gives his opponents time to sprawl. If he sets up shots with striking, he can do well there. I just don't think Duraev is going to set much up with striking in this fight, especially not after being knocked out in his last fight. Chidi has been taken down in 3 of his 4 UFC fights, including twice by Dusko. I do think Duraev is going to have some success wrestling, but ultimately Chidi's power, speed will be the difference for him. Here's the bet. Or here's how you can find the bet. If you're a premium member, you have access to the line movement tracker. That's one of the many tools that you get. Become a premium member. It's $10 a month. $10 a month. The line movement tracker showed that Chidi Njokuani opened at a plus 140 underdog. He is now a minus 160 favorite. So that means the odds were put out. The sharps, the people who do this for an actual living, who bet tens of thousands of dollars on fights, immediately hammered the Chidi line. He flipped to a favorite and they kept hitting it, which is why he's an even bigger favorite now. Chidi Njokuani at minus 160 is probably a good bet. The sharps say so. The analysis says so. And that's why that line movement tracker is so valuable, because you can see the opening odds, the current odds, the probability that the odds say, meaning at minus 160, what is that saying that his percent chance of winning is? So become a premium member today. It's $10 a month. It's $100 for the year. If you want to do a full year up front, it's $100. I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. I've given you 20 units of net profit at UFC 286, 36 units of net profit on the year. That includes all the losses. That is net profit. That's just not how many we've won. WeOwnPicks.com, click become a member. Stop. I mean, come on. What are we doing here? Come on. Then we have Alex Perez taking on Manel Kape. Alex Perez is a very good striker with fantastic low kicks and solid wrestling. He comes in clean with combinations, and then he finishes those exchanges with the leg kicks, and he circles out. He averages almost 3 takedowns per fight and has a solid 77% takedown defense. He's coming off the submission loss to Pantoja last summer. Manel Kape is fast and explosive, who has no issues chasing knockouts. He's a southpaw with good pressure, and he bounces in and out of range really well. He's a decent wrestler when he needs to be, and he closes distance well when he wants to. He's fun to watch, but at times, he's having a little too much fun in there, and he makes some fight IQ mistakes. He's riding a nice 3-fight win streak, with his most recent win being over David Dvorak in December. And this is a super close fight. A lot of people are seeing the fight skid that Perez's record is at. Right now he's on a little bit of a skid, and they're going to count him out. But that's a mistake. Perez is very good, and those 2 losses were solid. The first was to Figgy in a title fight, and the second was Pantoja, who may have the next title shot. So Perez is a solid striker, but he can wrestle as well, and we just saw Manel Kape get taken down twice by David Dvorak. I think Manel Kape wins this, because of how durable he is and how clean his striking is. But I'm avoiding bets here because, this is a pretty straightforward card. This fight feels like a landmine, right? There's always a landmine. Casey O'Neill was a landmine for a lot of people. Juliana Miller was a freaking black hole for people betting. We didn't bet it. We told you not to bet it. This feels like one of those fights because Alex Perez is very, very good, and Manel Kape's a good-sized favorite here. Then we have Andrea Lee, the very unlikable Andrea Lee taking on Maycee Barber. Andrea Lee is a dynamic striker who uses punches and kicks really well. And I know it's like stupid. She uses punches and kicks. Yeah, it's a fist fight. I get it. But meaning she's just a clean, pure kickboxer. She's incredibly tough. She's got improved grappling as well. She has 3 takedowns in her win over Shevchenko, the sister, but also had 3 against Roxanne Modafferi, 3 against Joanne Wood. And those were losses, but she's working in the wrestling. Her takedown defense can use some work. It sits at 56%, but her striking is clean, and she can beat most people in the division just in a pure striking match. Maycee Barber is a solid striker herself with great boxing and improved wrestling. She's not a grappler in style, but she has well-timed takedowns when she needs them and was able to take down Montana De La Rosa, Jessica Ai, and Miranda Maverick. She's very tough physically, but the knock on her has always been she can break. She can break mentally. She's on a 3-fight win streak that should be a 2-fight win streak, but she does seem to have found her rhythm after a few bumps in the road. Andrea and her husband are unlikable people. They just are. But she's very good as a fighter. Her striking is clean, and even in her losses, she hangs tough and keeps it close. She has 4 losses in the UFC, and honestly, none of them are bad. Joanne Wood is tough as nails. Lauren Murphy is top 5 in the division. And Roxanne Modafferi, people want to dog her, but she has been a gamer. And Vivian Arusho is also a ranked fighter. Those are her losses. I think Andrea lights up Maycee on the feet and can hopefully defend the takedowns. I'm tempted to throw underdog money at her at plus 175, but rule number 1, we cannot bet on women. I do like the over 2.5 rounds here, and I do have a parlay for premium members where I parlayed some round bets. It's basically even money, a couple of just guaranteed straightforward overs. I parlayed them, and we're good to go. Premium members, you can see that bet now at WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member if you're not a member, and if you are a member, make sure your Discord is linked because I threw that bet on there last night right after UFC 286 when they dropped the round lines. Immediately placed that bet, threw it on Discord. You got the alert to your phone. The line's already starting to move. It's already starting to move. That's why it's so important to link your Discord for premium members because you're going to get the alerts to your phone instantly so you can get ahead of some of this line movement. Then we have Nate Landwehr taking on Austin Lingo. And if you remember, Austin Lingo was supposed to fight 2 weeks ago. He weighed in. He was ready. But his opponent missed by an absurd amount, and that fight was canceled. He's put on this card, which works for him because, like Hailey Cowan we mentioned earlier, he's from Texas. So good. Works for him. A couple of Texans scrapped from their cards, put on the Texas card. And this card is loaded with guys who are going to go out chasing a finish and may get finished themselves in the process. As I say, feast or famine fighters, and Nate Landwehr is another one of them. He's going to run forward, throw wild, look for a finish at all cost. He's a talented guy with power and skills, but almost too focused on being fun and exciting that he puts himself in harm's way for no reason. He has never been in a boring fight, and I don't anticipate this being one either. He's typically looking to pressure hard, get it to the ground, and work from there. He's coming off the decision win over David Onama, where he had 3 takedowns, 2 submission attempts, landed more strikes, was still knocked down, and almost out. But Great win for him. Austin Lingo, as I mentioned, was supposed to fight 2 weeks ago, but he's on this card now. He's a pretty well-rounded guy who has found himself riding a 2-fight win streak after a really hard-fought win over Luis Saldana last summer. He's a striker who's light on his feet with power and speed. He mixes in elbows and has a nice variety. He also uses his jab well, and even though he hasn't gotten a knockout yet in the UFC, he has knockdowns in both of those wins. He currently has an 80% takedown defense, and he's going to need it in this fight. This card has a lot of mid-size favorites that are probably pretty safe. I don't think this is one of those matchups. Don't get me wrong. Nate is the minus 275 favorite and probably should win, but Austin Lingo is more dangerous than his UFC fights reflect. He has sneaky power, and if Nate comes charging in reckless, he could get caught. Lingo is tough as hell. He's not going to be easy to get out of there. My only real concern for Lingo here is that he's going to be cutting weight twice in 2 weeks, and I think that nonstop pressure from Nate is going to slow him down. So seeing Nate grind out a hard-fought decision on David Onama, this feels very similar to that. He's going to come forward, probably work through some adversity, grind, and get it done. Nate is the pick. Again, I'm not going to bet on that because, man, Nate gets himself into some trouble, and Austin Lingo hits very hard. We have the co-main event. We have Holly Holm taking on Yana Santos. Holly Holm's 41 years young. 41 years young. She's the former bantamweight champion. She's been fighting the upper echelon of the division for almost 10 years. She's an insanely talented boxer who has a ton of patience and has beaten the best in the world. She's 41 years old at this point, but age doesn't matter with her style. She's always been technical. She has an impressive striking differential over a 13-fight UFC career, and age would matter if she relied on her chin or if she got hit often, because your chin's going to be the first thing to go when you age out. But she doesn't. She sticks and moves really well. She turns MMA fights into kickboxing matches with her 78% takedown defense. She's coming off that split decision loss to Ketlin Vieira, where she landed more total strikes, more significant strikes, had 10 minutes of control time. Frankly, she won that fight. She's taking on Yana Santos, formerly Yana Kunitskaya. She was married, which is why her last name changed. And she's a high-volume striker who lands more than 4 significant strikes per minute. She does not have a ton of power, but she has plenty of output and diversity. She's got nice kicks, and she uses them to maintain distance. She has wrestling as well, with an average of almost 2 takedowns per fight, but a very low 53% accuracy. She's coming back after almost 2 years away and a TKO loss to Irene Aldana. And this feels like a perfect fight for Holly Holm. She's going to dance around, touch Yana up with jabs, defend the takedowns, and cruise to a decision. Yana doesn't have much power, so she's not really a threat on the feet, which means that Holly can keep up the volume and just let her hands go. Holly's going to be the easy pick here. There should be a bet. I should moneyline bet Holly. She should be in the safety parlay. She's almost a guarantee. But rule number 1, we cannot bet on women's MMA. And then we have the main event of the evening, the always exciting Chito Vera taking on the gangly but good Corey Sandhagen. Marlon Chito Vera is a Muay Thai striker who likes to fight ugly. He does a great job using all of his tools for a pretty versatile attack style. While he doesn't wrestle often, he is a submission threat if it gets to the ground. He does have a negative striking differential and is hittable, but he has so much power that even when he is completely outstruck by his opponents, their faces look like they've been through a meat grinder. He's coming off the win over Dominic Cruz, where he was losing pretty much the entire fight, and then he landed that incredible kick in the 4th round. Corey Sandhagen is a very active striker with deceiving power and solid technique. He's fluid, he's fast, and he's very good with combinations and variety. He's going to throw punches, kicks, elbows, knees, and mix up where they land on his opponents. He's athletic, tough, and he ties it all out with solid BJJ. I think by now, a lot of you know that I am not the biggest Chito Vera fan. I love watching his fights. I appreciate his power, but I just hate that he essentially gets pieced apart. He's outlanded in every single one of his fights, and then he lands the big punch. Or his punches just do a little more damage, even though he was outstruck 2-1. Frankie Edgar was beating him before getting caught. Rob Font was just doing all the work, doubled his strikes, but showed the damage. Dominic Cruz was dominating that entire fight before he was knocked out. This is an impressive win streak of his. And, you know, all of them would be losses if they were 3-round fights. Every single one of those wins I just mentioned for Cheeto would have been losses if they were 3-round fights. And that's what makes this so tricky, because I'm positive Corey will win the early rounds. He's going to hit a rhythm. He's going to get his striking going. He's going to outland Cheeto, but rounds 3, 4, 5 could be an issue. And I'm going to have to pick Corey here. And I keep getting Cheeto fights wrong because I keep picking him against them for this exact reason. So you might want to fade me here. But Corey's going to be the pick. The significant strike line is going to be the bet. That's going to be the bet. Bet Online offers who lands more significant strikes in a fight, right? That's a bet that they put out there. And Corey's going to be, there's not a world where Corey doesn't land more significant strikes. Cheeto Vera has his striking differential is negative. He has hit more than he hits his opponents. And I can bet on who's going to land more strikes. It's got to be Corey. Could Cheeto land the big one and knock him out? Sure. So I'm going to make that bet or place that bet when that drops. That's typically on Fridays. Make sure you're a premium member. You have the Discord link so you get that alert. And make sure you have signed up with Bet Online. If you sign up with Bet Online using my link, I'll send you $50. Just go to weonpicks.com/bets. Use the link, sign up, make a deposit. I'll send you $50. The pick here is going to be Corey, because Corey should be able to land. Corey's got a tough chin. He's not an old Dominic Cruz. He's not an old Frankie Edgar. He's not a thin-skinned Rob Font. He's tough. He's gritty. He can grind. He doesn't show damage. He doesn't get put out. So Corey's going to be the pick for all of those reasons, but the bet is definitely going to be the more significant strikes bet, and that is going to be on Corey Sandhagen when that drops on Friday. Again, use our links. I'll send you $50. Guys, that is the breakdown. Become a premium member. It's $10 a month. If you want to pay for the full year, it's $100 for the full year. We have given you consistent profit. Last night alone, more than 21 units of net profit. That includes the losses. 37 units for the year. There's only 8 events this freaking year. I've already given you 37 units of net profit. If a unit for you is $10, well, premium membership's also $10. This year already, up until now, I have given you more than 3 years of membership back in your pocket. Jacob hit his nasty, massive bet. We both bet on the biggest winning underdog on the card. Last night was a huge success. You should be a premium member so you can have that success for UFC San Antonio. It's not just the bets. It's not just the picks. There's a DraftKings optimizer. There's all sorts of tools and information available to you, including this massive 38-column spreadsheet with data and insight from multiple sources that you can scroll across and use to find your own spots and make your own plays. If you want $50, I'll send you $50. Just go to weonpicks.com/bets. Sign up using our links, and we will send you $50 as a thank you. It's affiliate marketing. You're going to use our link. You're going to sign up. You're going to make it a deposit. They're going to pay me. I'm going to cut off a piece of that and give it right back to you. weonpicks.com/bets. Sign up, make a deposit. I'll send you $50.